Three, two, one.
Action.
All right, welcome everybody. We're here for episode number 24 of Untitled ZX. Rolling right along. I'm Uncle Frank, and this is Nick. Hey,
Action.
Nick,
Hello.
how's the week going?
Um, I don't know. Nothing's happened. Nothing interesting's really happening. Nothing interesting's ever really happening. That's sort of how it goes around here.
Nothing, anything going on with your job?
Yeah, I don't talk to them again until next week.
Uh,
Because they told me this like 2 weeks ago, so I've been waiting for the last 3 weeks. Um,
all right. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. We got a heat wave going this week.
yeah, we're gonna have highs of what, 100 by Thursday, by the time this is out, actually.
That's right, yeah.
As we,
Also, you missed a 5-year-old recital on Saturday.
someone had to take care of the dogs while no one else was here.
Yes. The whole 1 hour dance recital was based on the Alice of Wonderland.
Yes, mother did mention that.
Classic interpretation, I'll say. And then yeah, then I had to go to Baltimore for robotics with Frank,
Fun.
which they did okay. It was adventurous to say the least. So, and we got to see him. Go ahead.
We got, yeah.
All right. Well, this week we got three movie reviews. Wow, you've been busy.
Yep.
I guess yeah, at least you got that going. We're gonna talk about the Animal Farm, the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and Supergirl, which I think people have been talking about.
Yes,
And
that's
then we'll do a little bit of you got some ideas for a Lightyear sequel. So why don't we jump in?
yeah,
Animal Farm.
we're gonna go through this quick. We're not gonna really go through any positives because there really aren't any.
Well, is this an older movie or this just came out?
This came out last month. I didn't watch it in theaters, of course, but
Uh-huh.
direct directed by Andy Serkis. It's an animated adaptation of George Orwell's 1945 classic. Uh,
hmm
Adaptation, very loose usage of the term
Yeah.
because it fundamentally misunderstands the source material down to its very core.
Isn't Andy Serkis the actor that does Gollum?
Yeah, Gollum, Caesar in Planet of the Apes, Snoke and Kino Loy in Star Wars, Claw in the MCU. He's got a lot.
Is
Alfred in
this
Pattinson
is,
Batman.
is this the first movie he's directed?
No, I think it's the third or fourth. He also did an adaptation of The Jungle Book a while ago, and he did Venom Let There Be Carnage in 2021, I believe. He's
Uh,
a wonderful actor, but his directorial track record has not been so great.
Not so good.
This
I
film
don't understand why this movie's been made multiple times, I think.
in 1954 and 1999, respectively.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think it's been the idea of it's been used multiple times as well.
yeah, this is a very not great adaptation of the source material. It's barely an adaptation of the source material. It tones it down to be this silly kitty cartoon, which is not what the book was at all.
I feel like this makes a terrible kiddie cartoon because like it's got some kind of point it wants to make politically, and when you dumb it down to a kid version, you miss the whole purpose I could see.
It's got a humongous cast too, which is kind of weird. Like Seth Rogen voices Napoleon for some reason. Glenn
hmm
Close is there, Steve Buscemi's there, Woody Harrelson's there, Jim Parsons is there. There's a lot of people, a lot of big names, which again is so kind of baffling to me because what did they see in this?
Right. Yeah.
Like
Okay.
like Napoleon is toned down significantly, his character, because in the
Mm.
book he is this monstrous individual. He's the pig who like overthrows the other pig and takes over and turns their little rebellion, their little freedom fighters group, and turns it back into a dictatorship again because he wants power. It
Mm.
shows sort of the corruption of power and the failings of the fall of freedom and how it can be rotted away from the inside. But Napoleon's more of a scapegoat here. He's manipulated by they added another villain, a human character who Glenn Close voices, who orchestrates a lot of the things that he does. So they almost turn him into a scapegoat, which he goes along to because of his greed and his lust for power. But it tames him severely and it ends differently. Like this is not about like totalitarianism and dictatorships as much as it is about corporations and capitalism, which is a great thing to explore in this day and age, how that hurts, but
Well, I
not,
was gonna say I will say maybe it doesn't follow the book, but it does sound very close to today's world.
yeah, on paper, that is. Entirely on paper, because it's still, again, insanely toned down.
Hmm.
the characters are a lot of the original characters from the book are sidelined in favor of this kiddie version of Napoleon and this new main character, a pig named Lucky, who's not from the book. The main character of the movie is an original character
Hmm.
who he goes along with all of Napoleon's like rule breaking as he goes along and only turns on him when he directly kills when he has someone killed. Like he goes along with the entire thing until someone dies, and then he doesn't think about it. He's like, "Oh, now I think it's bad." It's kind of ridiculous.
Hmm.
They tone it down a lot. A lot of just the way they phrase it. Like there's a sequence, or not a sequence, when they're writing like the rules of Animal Farm at the beginning, one of the like commandments is like, "We shall never drink alcohol," but for whatever reason they change it to be naughty juice,
Hmm.
which is no, and it they play like horrendous like pop music throughout, the worst needle drops ever. That there was a sequence that took me completely out of the movie. Okay, there were a lot of sequences that took me completely out of the movie. But one scene where they get the big corporate lady to give them food, they open the barn and for whatever reason the Price is Right theme starts playing.
Yeah, that's
And
weird.
it's like so obnoxious. Like it's not even like subtle or in the background. Like, no, it's blaring. And it's like, and it
Hmm.
goes on for like a solid minute and a half. And I'm like, why are we playing the Price is Right theme here?
Yeah.
And they almost try to make Napoleon a little more sympathetic, where they show Snowball starting to sort of alter the rules a little bit behind the scenes and Snowball is significantly less involved in this version of it compared to the original as well. And Snowball starts to like violate the rules to try and make this more sustainable for the animals, and Napoleon feels betrayed, and he also thinks she's boring and has her banished. And Snowball is gender swapped too here, which doesn't really make much of a difference. The role is still really
Boring. That sounds like a word from today's public as well. Yeah.
Napoleon's whole bit here isn't even like thirst for power. It's that he wants to party and he wants to live the high life. He wants to have fun. He doesn't want to. It's like the power is just because he wants to live the high life. He wants to.
Right.
You see him driving a car. The business lady, the billionaire lady, has a freaking Cybertruck for some reason. And even the way they execute some of the things, like the infamous line from the book, "All animals are equal, but some are more equal than other." He doesn't even say that to the animals. He says that to a crowd of human engineers for some
Mhm.
reason who work with the weird billionaire lady.
Okay.
And then there's a blood and they fight, and there's a big fight scene between Napoleon and what's his name, Lucky, the new character. And then Napoleon dies, and there's a nice happy ending where everyone lives happily ever after. And I'm like, that's not even close to how the book goes. The book is a dystopian, but the book is a tragedy. The book does not end like Napoleon gets away scotch-free and turns Animal Farm into exactly the thing that they tried to prevent it from being, the thing they wanted to get rid of when they overthrew it, when they orchestrated that whole resistance at the
Hmm.
beginning. But nope, they just ignore that completely. Napoleon dies and they live happily ever after. And the end. They've kiddified it. It tones it down and it misses the entire point. Like this is not a commentary on the corruption of power. This is a commentary on, like, again, the dangers and the problems caused by capitalism. Again, a fine message on paper, but this is not the place to do it. Like, do it somewhere else, and you do not need to kiddify it either. Like, we don't need the pop songs and there's a freaking the opening credits are played to a rap version of Old MacDonald Had a Farm, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that seems, yeah, okay.
And the sheep are all voiced by Sheldon.
Huh. Okay.
That's a choice.
Yeah, sounds like you had a rough time here. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the rating of this movie? You know?
In terms of the MPAA rating,
Yeah, I'm curious.
PG.
It's PG?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, what is your rating?
2 out of 10. Do not bother with it. It's not a good adaptation. The CIA funded adaptation from the 50s is supposedly a more faithful adaptation.
That may be the worst score I've heard you give out.
It's because I haven't talked about the ones I haven't liked because I want to be employed in the future. Luckily, this is not a studio I want to work for anyway, so I have any
There you go.
desire of coming in contact with Angel Studios, which will have another film of theirs next week, which I'm sure will not be much better.
What is that?
The Young Washington movie from them. Their studio has a very poor track record, so I'm not hopeful, but we're gonna watch it anyway for the love of the game,
All right.
for the ranking.
All right. Well, let's move on into something a little better.
A lot better, actually.
A lot better. Yeah. The unbearable weight of massive talent. All
This
right. Tell
this
me about it.
this came out a couple years ago, and I had been meaning to watch it for so long because it came out in 2022,
Mhm.
and I first heard of it way back before it came out because when I saw The Batman with my father back 4 years ago, I vividly remember they played the trailer for this beforehand, and there was one joke in the trailer that has lived rent-free in my head for years,
Mhm.
where Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal's character are trying to climb over this wall. And there's like this dramatic scene where where Nick Cage tries to pull Pedro Pascal up, and he's like, "You're too heavy, I can't bring it." And they're like over to the top dramatic. He's like, "I can't lift you," and Pedro Pascal's like, "Go on without me, never forget me." And then Nicolas Cage jumps to the other side of the wall, and then he looks to the side, and he finds out they could have just walked around the whole time. Pedro Pascal, his head peeks out from the side. He's like, "Turns out we could have gone around the whole time." And the way they frame that in the movie is like hysterical because they frame it in a way the timing of it, the timing. You have this dramatic like "Don't go without me," and the funny it's even funnier because they're egregiously high during this scene too. So,
Well, that makes some more sense about how it happened. Yeah. So,
but like the way like it waits a couple seconds before revealing the punchline that it
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
they could have just gone around. I didn't even say what the premise of this movie was, did I?
Yeah. Tell me what it's about.
So this movie, Nicolas Cage plays a fictionalized version of himself. Like the main tagline is that Nicolas Cage was playing Nicolas Cage in this movie.
Okay. Yeah. I think I kind of remember the previews of this too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the whole sort of premise is this, and I've watched this probably, I think, Friday night, but the whole premise here is that this is Nicolas Cage, but his career is not doing so well. So he gets an invite, like a big paycheck to go visit some fan's birthday party on an island in like Spain.
Hmm.
The guy who invited him is Pedro Pascal's character, but then he gets pulled aside by the CIA, who are also in Spain, investigating this guy because he's supposedly the head of a criminal syndicate. So he's
Okay.
got conflicting loyalties because him and this super fan are actually hitting it off and have a lot in common, and they've decided they want to make a movie together. But also he's spying on him because he thinks he's a crime boss, and the CIA thinks he's a crime boss. But he's also really bad at the whole spy thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
And the whole thing, it's not really like it's more of a comedy that's sort of the one of the funniest things is the way it's structured in terms of the narrative. Around the second act of the movie, Cage makes a big proposition where he's like, I want to stay longer so that we can make a script together and make our own movie. And see them talk about the premise of what they're going to do with their movie. They're like talking about what they want to do with it. And as it goes on, you realize that the movie they're describing is the movie you're currently watching.
Huh. Okay.
And
Yeah. Interesting.
they start talking about, oh no, but then the CIA asks him to try to shoehorn in a kidnapping subplot to get him to reveal where the kidnapped like governor's daughter or whatever is.
Hmm.
And they managed to shoehorn it in somehow, and it all comes to a head when we find out like the big plot twist because we keep following. There's a bunch of like false like fake out giveaways where there's
Hmm.
different rooms where it's like, oh my goodness gracious, he's gonna reveal that he's actually the bad guy and he's actually the crime boss and he's gonna try and kill Nicolas Cage, and is like he's
Hmm.
gonna reveal he's like there's one scene where he's going into this secret room and he's because Nick Cage is told that that's where the kidnapped girl is being held. So he goes in because Pedro's character then lets him in. He's like, if I let you in, you're not going to see me the same way. And it's this dramatic build up to him opening the room. You think the kidnapped girl's going
Yeah.
to be there. He
Yeah.
opens the door and it's actually a shrine to Nicolas Cage. It's a shrine to Nicolas Cage, complete with props from his movies and like a $6,000 like hyper realistic like statue replica, like the ones at like the Wax Museum type statue with the
Uh-huh.
guns from one of his movies.
Hmm.
And there's like again props from a bunch of different movies, and there's a giant like theatrical like National Treasure poster in the background. And it's like again, you have this whole build up But then then there's another bit. Nick Cage talks about how his struggling relationship with his family is why his creative mind is blocked. And there's a scene where he is like, "Look, you might not be able to forgive me for doing this." There's the scene he's about to take him into this room, and he opens this room, and his family's there, and he's like, "You cannot bring them into this," because again, he's still convinced he's the crime lord,
Yeah,
not telling him.
yeah,
And he's like, "No, I just brought them here to so you can resolve your
yeah.
differences and get your creative drive back."
Uh,
And the big twist is that he is, in fact, not actually the crime boss. He's the public figurehead of the criminal organization, but his cousin is the one actually running the criminal
yeah,
organization. And he's keeping a lot of it secret from him. So, like the kidnapping, he didn't even know that that was a thing his cousin did. So it's being pinned on him, even though he had no knowledge of it.
yeah,
Then there ends up being a whole thing where he has to help Nicolas Cage because then the same crime boss kidnaps Nick Cage's daughter, so they have to go rescue her, and there's a big fight scene. I did not love the action sequence. I felt it was kind of not shot the greatest, although in terms of the narrative structure, it was earned. Like
that
they
was
built
good.
up to it again with the whole tie-in to the script they were working on. They were discussing
Yeah,
again, whilst egregiously high. There's also another bit, there's a recurring bit they keep coming back to that's like hysterically funny, where Nick Cage asks Pedro's character what his like three favorite movies are, and he mentions one obscure movie that's like Nick Cage's favorite. But then when he says what his third favorite is, it's Paddington 2. And Nick Cage is like, "What do you mean Paddington 2?" And Pedro's like, "Paddington 2, I cried the whole way through and it made me want to be a better man." And Nick Cage is like, "You're ridiculous." And he's like, "We're gonna watch it now." So they watch it, and then it just cuts to them at the end of the movie, and Nick Cage is crying, and he's like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen." And he's like, "I told you, man."
That's funny. It is a good movie,
And they keep
actually.
bringing the bit up, like the ending of the movie after they make their movie together, because it cuts to the movie they made, which is literally the same thing as the movie we watched, just with different actors.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah.
Then it cuts to them at their premiere, and then Nicolas Cage goes back to his hotel room with his family, and they're like, "What do you want to do, guys?" And they're just like, "We can watch a movie." And then it ends with them watching Paddington 2 and all sobbing uncontrollably.
That's funny.
So it ties back into the
Yeah, so they
Paddington.
bring that back around as well.
Yeah, they
Tell me
keep
about this director first.
I think this was his first like major blockbuster. He later did last year's Anaconda remake, which was not as well received. I
Hmm.
have not seen that one yet, and I'm not crazy drawn to it, although this was again hysterical comedic timing.
Hmm.
Like
All
this,
right, so he did well.
yeah. I know comedy's like subjective and all, but this was like legitimately really funny. And again, it's sort of the brilliance of the timing. Like, yeah,
Do we know anything about who wrote it? Who wrote the movie?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it's hard to write comedy and structure like that. So
Yeah, because it's a lot about timing and sort of when it comes to visual gags, it's about again timing with like punchlines and visual bits.
yeah, we have to real. I would imagine you got to have real tightness between the script writer and the director because making what's on the page come out and vice versa. So
You've got to have people that are good sort of at delivery and have good dynamics. And I think Page and not Cage, Cage and Pascal had great chemistry in this movie, which I think
mm,
helped a lot. Like their dynamic, they bounced off of each other so well, which I think is what made it so
I might have to go back and watch this one. Yeah, I will say about Cage. Sometimes this stuff I like. Other times I don't know. It feels flat, but
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be good to see him in this. I like Pedro.
I have the DVD right here. I've had this DVD for 4 years. I got it on like Black Friday and the year it came out for like $5, and I was like, "We're gonna watch it. We're gonna watch it eventually," because our movie theater only does DVD and Netflix down here.
So did you watch the DVD itself, or you watched it on
Yeah,
streaming?
yeah. We didn't watch it
Nice.
on stream because we watched it down here in the basement because Sam and decided that they were gonna drag Isaac and Adam and them here for a movie night, and they didn't actually think of a movie to watch, so they put it on me because I know everything. But
Well, that's true. So what's the score?
like an 8.5 out of 10. This is like legitimately hysterical.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's a pretty good score for you.
Yeah,
So, all right. Well, I'll put that one on my list to go see or to watch on streaming.
yeah. Who distributed it?
All right,
Why?
let's move on. How about Supergirl? Now, this one is all over the place. I think I've seen 20 ads for this over the last
Yeah,
week.
the promotion for it has been heavy, although the reception
Yeah,
to it
I
has
think
been,
they're at Burger King and McDonald's and everywhere.
yeah, the reception to it has been mixed, but
Yeah, I would say it hasn't been great. So,
It's actually quite funny because they're out here saying, "Oh, the DCU is over because we got one project with mixed reviews. It's over." And it's like this is the second time they've tried to do a DC cinematic universe. And the first time they tried to make a DC cinematic universe, its first three movies were Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and Suicide Squad, and they somehow managed to survive almost a decade.
yeah.
So this I honestly think they're going to be fine.
Okay. So tell me, well, first, plot wise, I don't know a ton about it. Supergirl is Superman's cousin, but
Yeah, this is a
does it
very
follow a lot of the same stories? She comes in a meteor.
This is a very sort of different take on the character. This is based on the Woman of Tomorrow comic. I have not read it, but I know that it's considered the quintessential modern Supergirl story because I think what a lot of people's problems with her character have been in the past is that she's too similar to Superman. It's like they
Okay.
don't make her stand on her own as a character. And the Woman of Tomorrow character sort of for comic sort of reinvented her because she's got a very different backstory. So it doesn't make sense that she'd end up so similar to Clark.
What is her backstory?
She was not born on Krypton. She was born on a chunk of Krypton, like a chunk of it that survived, that her father, who was a scientist, had built this force field to preserve a chunk of the planet after its destruction, which worked for a while until they found out that deeper in the planet's core was where the kryptonite came from, and it started poisoning their soil. So it ended up killing off most of them. So Kara, Supergirl, she was a teenager at this point when the poison started taking over. So she had lived here her whole life, and they sent her to Earth to find her cousin. They sent her to Earth to find
Mm,
Kal-El,
hmm
and she crashes on Earth. And we get there's a decent chunk of the movie that's in sort of the flashbacks, which are really fun, where we see her backstory on Krypton. Or
Yeah.
remain of Krypton, and we see like when she first lands on Earth, her and Crypto first land on Earth.
I do feel like there's no movies about Krypton, really.
Yeah, this they show flashbacks, bits of them. Like even
Yeah.
Man of Steel opened with like the flashback storyline, or like this had the flashbacks.
I do feel like there could be movies about origin story in Krypton somehow, you know?
Yeah, you could get there's a lot they could do with like in this new universe. I actually think there's a lot they could do with like Jor-El and Zor-El.
Yeah.
Because Jor-El's a little more corrupted in this universe, and he sends his like final message to Clark was like, "Yes, go conquer Earth and rule them as their god." Which
Yeah.
they've done that mindset with him a couple times before, but it's not the main sort of approach they use for Jor-El.
hmm
But I think that was kind of interesting when they did that in Superman. But they make a throwaway comment about it during the Krypton flashbacks in this movie, where Zor-El's like, "My crazy brother sent his son to conquer Earth."
Now, I know James Gunn's in charge of DC Universe. Did he write this
No.
movie?
People are blaming everything about it on him because he's in charge, but even though
Well,
it's directed by Craig Gillespie, who also directed the films I, Tonya, Cruella, Dumb Money. So, and his name's plastered all over the marketing. Like they keep putting from director Craig Gillespie, but for
hmm.
whatever reason, people, I mean, I guess expecting DC fans to read might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, well, and I think everybody knows James Gunn's name, so yeah.
Yeah, but sort of I really like the stuff they did in the flashbacks and the way they set up her
Yeah.
backstory because again, she has memories of Krypton. She has memories of her birth family.
Right.
She has
Shaping who she is, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she has legitimate trauma. Like Clark, he was sent away when he was a baby. He has no recollection of his life on Krypton because he barely had life on Krypton.
Right.
He remembers it. She remembers everything about it. She remembers a lot. Well, not everything, but she remembers a lot about it. She remembers her birth parents. So she has that trauma, that lingering anger in her. And you see it sort of, that's sort of her arc. And that's sort of her arc in this movie is
Who
you
does she live with on Earth? Does she have family on Earth?
she goes back and forth. She doesn't stay on Earth, and this movie is mostly set in space because she keeps going to planets with red suns. Because the sort of thing is they yellow suns empower them, but red suns make them weaker. And she goes to red sun worlds so that she can get blackout drunk. But
Interesting. All right. Tell me about this actress who played Supergirl.
her name's Millie Alcock. Her big breakthrough role was in the Game of Thrones prequel House of the Dragon and like the flashback storyline in its first season. I think it was a flashback storyline. She played a younger version of the show's main character
Okay.
first season. So I
How'd
think
she do here? How'd she do in this movie?
she did great, even if I do wish they explored a little more of her arc, because I think her arc was solid, and her sort of, because they pair her up with this character, and this is exactly how it go sort of how it goes in the comic too, that it's based on, is she meets this girl named Ruthie, who is, her family's been murdered by this guy named Krem of the Yellow Hills, and she's seeking vengeance, and she wants Kara's help, and Kara doesn't want to help her because she doesn't want her to go down this path of vengeance and anger and violence because she's been consumed by that exact path. And I wish they explored that element of how it affected her more. Although I do
Hmm.
appreciate them not just saying killing is bad, because
Right.
that's a thing we do with other superheroes like Superman and stuff. They won't kill, but there's this sort of instance where Ruthie's about to kill towards the end the main villain, Krem, who Kara eventually gives in because Krem shoots Crypto with a poison dart, and the only way to get the antidote is on off of Krem's body. So they go after him. There's a whole thing, and they meet Jason Momoa's character Lobo.
Yeah,
Uh,
what's his backstory?
He's not in it too much, and I do think he feels kind of out of place in this story, but Jason Momoa does do great with the role, which actually makes sense because when Jason Momoa auditioned for Aquaman back in Batman versus Superman, he said in interviews before that he thought he was auditioning for the character of Lobo, which makes sense. He looks like just like him, like he looks like Lobo. He's the kind of guy who could pull off Lobo. So he didn't audition for Aquaman. He thought he was auditioning for Lobo.
Hmm.
Now he actually gets his chance to be Lobo. And Lobo's whole stick is he's like this immortal, like bounty hunter who he's a violent character. He kills for money. He's he's
Hmm.
very like he just does things himself. Like he's a bit of an anti-hero. Like he does end up helping them out because he's got beef with one of Krem's guys, but like he's like an on and off. Like sometimes he's a villain. Like he ends up as an enemy of Superman a lot, but
Yeah.
but he's also ends up being an anti-hero. He helps whoever is directly beneficial to him. So at the moment, again, he's fighting with Kara and Ruthie because he has beef with one of Krem's guys.
All right, so we talked about a few of the good things. Any other good things?
Um,
Was Superman in the movie at all?
he was in a couple scenes, and David Corn Sweat is great as always, as he's
Yeah.
been with the character. Because we see the scene where we see a couple times where he like video calls Kara because she's been going to and from Earth, but she hasn't really been settling down.
Yeah.
And you see her going off world and her ignoring him, but then you flash back to the scene where they first meet, which is kind of fun because she only spoke Kryptonian and he speaks English. And it's implied to have been pretty recently because Superman's only been Superman for around 3 years at this point in the timeline
Yeah.
during the main story. So that means she
Hmm.
crashed on Earth no more than like 2.5, 3 years ago. And so you see their first interaction, and then you see a couple moments of her trying to adjust to life on Earth. And the ending
Yeah.
of the movie, you see him again at the ending where her and Crypto go back to his apartment, and she finally decides she's going to try and settle down on Earth,
Hmm.
try to get sort of accustomed to life on Earth after the whole thing with Krem. And I did like that ending, and that sort of leads into Man of Tomorrow next year, which is going to be the big event film where you're going to have Superman and the Green Lanterns and Peacemaker and Supergirl all teaming up to fight, and Lex Luthor all teaming up to fight Brainiac. And
Hmm.
that one James Gunn's directing, but that's going to follow up on a bunch of different projects. That's going to follow up on plot points from Superman, Peacemaker season two, this film, and the upcoming Lantern series.
Okay. Well, tell me, you said a few good things. Anything could have done better here?
Um, I do think we should have explored a little more of the burden of that violence and that anger with
Yeah,
Kara.
yeah,
He says that it's a burden that sucks, and we see her. She kills Krem at the end. She does actually kill him,
yeah. Hmm.
where she straight up like. And I do appreciate them going that route with it instead of just saying no, killing is bad and sparing him. Like no,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
like no. She doesn't need to go down this path of violence and killing that's corrupt, that's taken me from for so long. However, you're a piece of crap and need to die,
yeah, yeah,
which again, Krem was kind of a generic villain, and I think his design isn't that great. He looks kind of ridiculous. In the
yeah,
comic,
yeah.
with a much more simplistic design. Like in the comics, he was just a regular looking dude
Okay.
with a beard and like no shirt and a sword. But here he looks like a freaking like Guardians of the Galaxy like background villain.
So what is where all the the reviews aren't great. What are they saying? And I know it didn't make a ton of money either, but
A lot of people thinks it feels too generic, like an early MCU movie. A lot of people have been comparing it to like some of the MCU's weaker outings, like Thor: The Dark World and like Iron Man 2, like
hmm,
early MCU stuff when they were still sort of figuring out what their whole shtick was. And again, you definitely see that with Krem of the Yellow Hills because he very much feels akin to a character like Whiplash or Malekith or just someone
yeah,
who's not overly developed as a villain who only exists to drive the plot forward, which is kind of a shame because they could have done something really interesting with him. Because on paper, he's really interesting because he's a very messed up villain who does these like cruel things. Like, I'm talking like child trafficking, like this man's a straight up pedophile. And
hmm,
they just don't dive into how bad that is because in this day and age, that kind of thing would be telling and sort
yeah.
of very relevant, but I feel like they don't dive into his cruelty and how it's affected people, how it's hurt people.
I feel like summertime is a hard time. It used to be the big season for movies, but
I feel like it
yeah,
still is. They just release a lot of movies in the summer now, and
there are a lot of movies coming out. There's a
many of
couple
them
coming out. Toy Story just came out, and
that's doing well. We've got Minions coming out tomorrow, which is going to do well. There's a lot of
yeah,
kids movies that are doing well, or even
yeah,
the summer season started with we had a lot of indie horror movies doing good with Obsession, Backrooms were dominating the box office a couple weeks ago. And
yeah,
don't forget, we've got The Odyssey and Spider-Man coming out, and both of them are tracking to be huge box office hits
yeah, yeah,
as expected.
yeah. So maybe people just like, I'll wait. I got other things to do.
Yeah, people are
All
waiting.
right,
They're like, oh, we're getting a new Nolan movie and a new Spider-Man movie. We're just gonna wait for that.
yeah. Well, what kind of rating you give it?
It's solid like 7.5 out of 10. I did generally like it. Like, I do think there was I do think there could have been more from it. Also, the final fight scene kind of sucked, but
Yeah.
because they put a really weird song in, I don't even know the name of the song, but it didn't fit at all.
Hmm.
And supposedly it was a very last minute decision where the director straight up asked James Gunn, he's like, "Yo, I don't know what to put in this scene." James Gunn just picked something from the top of his playlist, and this he was just like, "Here, take this."
Oh my God, yeah.
Although
Yeah, 7.5. Not too bad, but
it also
yeah,
seems like because Peter Safran commented on it actually on its failure, and it almost seems like they expected this because they don't seem particularly fazed by its flop at the box office. It's not doing too great financially, but it doesn't seem like they're overly fazed by it. Like they're just like, yeah, no, this is we're disappointed that it didn't do well, but like it's just one step in the greater universe, and we're gonna keep going. It almost feels like they expected this to not do well, so they're kind of hoping. It feels like they're fairly confident in Clayface later this year and Man of Tomorrow next year.
I mean, I will say some of these movies here, yeah, the way they're playing them, yeah, they're not big crowd sellers. But I'll bet you when this movie starts streaming, people get into it more, and maybe that makes the next movie in the universe better.
Yeah, and I am kind of excited for the next movie in this universe, Clayface, because it's not a traditional superhero movie. It's this low budget body horror movie about a B-list Batman villain who's like an actor who falls into like a toxic waste or something and turned into a giant mush monster, basically.
Yeah.
He's a semi-popular Batman villain, but that wasn't meant to be part of the plan for this universe. Like this wasn't something they greenlit the studio, but acclaimed filmmaker Mike Flanagan actually submitted a screenplay for that film as a pitch, and James Gunn liked it so much that he said, "Yo, we're gonna get this out on the schedule." Which I honestly appreciate that approach. Like some of the movies are going to be obviously the big studio mandated like event films that are going to be the giant crowd pleasers, but this is a low budget horror movie that
Yeah.
was pitched to him externally and he just liked it so much that he's like, "Yeah, we're going to make this. This is awesome."
Well, and if it's a good story and you have somebody passionate about it, then that's the
Yeah.
kind of movie to make.
It's going to be a smaller budget by superhero blockbuster standards. Like Supergirl had like $150 million budget. Clayfaces, I think the reports have been it's going to be a budget of around 40 million, so it's going to need a lot less to break even.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that one I
Well,
feel,
they also put a lot into the marketing of Supergirl too, so
yeah,
I imagine it's gonna take some money to make that back up.
yeah, that definitely did not help.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. So Lightyear sequel, you got some good ideas?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this movie a lot after Toy Story 5 came out because I've been thinking about Buzz Lightyear a lot, which seems to happen every time there's a new Toy Story thing, is my childhood obsession of Buzz Lightyear resurfaces for a couple months.
Uh-huh.
Like this resurfaces every time. Like when Lightyear first came out and that movie got a fairly mixed reception, and that makes sense. The movie was kind of eh. I mean, I enjoyed it enough. I didn't hate it like a lot of people did, but I thought there was a lot of problems with it. But the way
Mhm.
the film ended sort of left a lot of room for a follow-up.
Okay.
Like it ended with a cliffhanger. They had a post-credit scene that's like, oh yeah, Zurg's alive, and they're in their like upgraded suits because they had the space. There's two different models of the Space Ranger suit in the movie. The main one they wear is the Space Ranger Alpha suit, which is almost like a more realistic approach to the Buzz Lightyear armor. But then
Yep.
at the very end of the film, Buzz and his crew all get the Space Ranger Beta suit, which is brighter, more vibrant, more cartoonish. It's closer to the animated suit. Like it looks more like the original Buzz Lightyear costume, but they only throw that on at the end of the movie as a tease, which is kind of ridiculous.
So what do you think you could do as a sequel part?
I think the one of the biggest issues is that the film took itself too seriously. So I think the first thing they need to go about is lighten the tone. Like Buzz Lightyear as a character inherently is like a parody of sci-fi tropes. Heavy inspiration from Star Wars, which was obvious from the get-go with him being like Zurg's building a Death Star,
Mhm.
or the I am your father joke in two, which they've played that bit out quite a bit. They've used that bit quite a few times. They've referenced it in Lightyear briefly, although the twist with Zurg and Lightyear, which I really didn't like, was that Zurg was in fact not Buzz's dad, or even better, just someone completely disconnected, but rather he was a Buzz from an alternate future, which I think was a weird choice. I would have been fine if he ended up being Buzz's father, because there's been conflicting ways of handling that bit, because in the Toy Story films, it's sort of implied that that's an actual, like, real canon thing, that Zurg is Buzz's father and not just a thing he said. But in the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command cartoon from the 2000s that John Lasseter hated so much that Disney has ignored its existence for the last 25 years,
Mhm.
in that show, they used that bit in one episode where Zurg says the I am your father thing, but he doesn't actually mean it. It's actually just let's distract Buzz long enough to get away. Let's shock him long enough to get away. But I think the thing they could do, I honestly think they could either ignore or sort of just don't follow up on the future Buzz being Zurg thing directly because of how he presents his technology, how he acquired his technology, like all the Zurg ships and the Zurg mech armor and the Zurg robot army. He straight up says that it's not, he didn't make all that. He straight up, because the current present timeline Buzz straight up asks him, he's like, yo, where'd you have you made all this? And he's like, oh no, I just found it lying around somewhere.
Mm.
Which leads me to almost believe, because the robots are programmed, all when he straight up says that the robots were, when he found them, programmed to only say the word Zurg.
Mm.
So part of me believes there is that our future Buzz is not the real Zurg, and he just found Zurg technology. And the post-credit scene of the film shows after Buzz blasts the robot suit and leaves him drifting in space. You see the eyes, the glowing eyes turn back on in the post-credit scene floating in space, which implies that either the armor is sentient, because part of me wants to think that the robot armor was actually like its own individual,
Mm.
or again, they could go full circle with the father bit and make that sort of his conflict. Um, Also, I do think they could tone down, they could do something, reduce the supporting cast role, because I didn't mind the Hawthorne character or the robot cat Socks, but the other two supporting characters, the war criminal old lady and Taika Waititi's character, were both kind of just there, and they weren't really all that interesting or engaging. So I feel like tone those two back a bit and maybe bring in some characters from the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command show, since John Lasseter is not at Pixar anymore. He was fired 8 years ago from,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like sexual abuse allegations or something. So
Mhm.
he doesn't work there anymore. They don't have to. Supposedly, the only reason they refused to acknowledge the existence of that show for so long was because Lasseter hated it.
What do you think of the show?
I only saw a couple episodes, but the first three episodes were combined into a pilot movie where they had Tim Allen dub over Buzz's lines. Because in the show he's voiced by Patrick Warburton, but they got Tim Allen to dub over his lines in the first three episodes and put them together as a movie and released it at direct to DVD. But I had the DVD as a kid. I watched it all the time. I loved that. I loved the movie so much. And I've
Mhm.
rewatched clips from it since then, particularly Zurg's clips, because Zurg in the show is not related to Buzz, but he's voiced in the show by Wayne Knight, and he's really funny. Like he's
Okay.
like I'm
But you
talking.
haven't watched the whole show then? How
No,
many episodes are there?
I think there was one season. It was like 60 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, it ran from late 2000 to early 2001, but it's not available anywhere.
Wow.
It's not on Disney Plus. Disney won't put it there.
Man, John Lasseter really did get rid of it.
Yeah, but DVD copies of the pilot movie are still pretty easy to come by. Like I see them going for 20 bucks ish on like eBay and Amazon. I was
Hmm.
looking them up the other day because I kind of want to get it. I kind of want to buy it again because I used to have the DVD for the pilot movie, but I think I sold it in like a garage sale a long time ago. But
Sounds like you
supposedly,
need to, yeah, sounds like you need to get it. Yeah.
I'm tempted. It's still pretty cheap on the aftermarket.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. There's no word about them making a sequel, I guess,
No,
right?
the first one didn't do crazy well at the box office, although it's also Pixar. They love to have humongous gaps between their movies,
Yeah.
especially with the Toy Story franchise. You look at the only movies with like a small gap between them were the first two, because there was 4 years between the first two,
Hmm.
11 years between two and three, 9 years
Yeah.
between three and four, and 7 years between four and five.
But this is the only spin-off movie as well,
This
right?
is
Like,
the only theatrically released film.
yeah, I guess you could argue the way you're talking that
The Buzz,
each of the Toy Stories are they're going through different characters' stories, I suppose. But
they had the original Buzz Lightyear of Star Command direct-to-video movie. And there's been a lot of short films. They had like short
yeah.
films and TV specials. Like they had the little Toy Story Toon shorts they did. I believe after three came out, they did a couple of those. And
But didn't you say when we talked about Toy Story, the next Toy Story should be more about Buzz?
I think so. With the way they did, again, four was very much Woody's movie, five was very much Jesse's. Buzz peaked in the second movie, so I think he really needs to be at the forefront again.
Yeah. So maybe that's where this comes back
And
around. But that's not really about, yeah, the
the
original
origin.
Buzz. Yeah.
Yeah, they could always do both of them close in proximity and have it sort of be a tie-in, or even have a Lightyear sequel come out sometime between then. Although they seem to have most of their slate through like 2029 figured out already, Pixar. 'Cause next year
Yeah.
in March, they've got one called Gato coming out, which is an original movie that mixes hand-drawn animation and CGI. It's about a cat voiced by Mark Ruffalo,
Mm.
but it actually looks kind of promising because they're taking a step away from their usual art style. Then the next two movies are just sequels because they've got a third Incredibles movie coming out in 2028 and a sequel to Coco in 2029.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, but they've got their
All
slate.
right. Any other thoughts on Lightyear?
No, that's all I've really got. I do think they should do
Okay.
more locations because the first movie's biggest flaw is that they don't show him as a space ranger. They show him as an astronaut marooned on this one planet, and we
Yeah.
spend 80% of the movie on this one planet, and the rest of the movie is spent on Zurg's ship,
Mm.
which is orbiting the same planet.
Right. So they
So
didn't go
they
very
should be
far.
going to more diverse locations because the planet they were on was not an overly exciting looking planet either. So,
Yeah. All right. What are you going to see next?
I'm going to
Well,
see.
you mentioned John Washington already. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no hope for it. It's going to be terrible, but we're gonna watch it anyway for the love of the
All
game.
right. What else?
Grandma's probably going to drag us to see the new Minions movie, so assuming we do, we'll discuss that next week.
Yeah. I think you need another one now. Maybe we need another classic.
I'll figure something out. We're also going to cover a little bit of the Anime Expo happening this weekend, particularly because we are finally getting updates on Steel Ball Run and the next batch of episodes for that, as well as hopefully a release date for Star Wars Visions Presents the Ninth Jedi, which should be having a panel. That panel is Thursday, I think, and they said that that show should be coming out in the summer, so we should hopefully have a release date for that by the time we record next.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we will see everybody next week. So thanks, everyone. That's a wrap.
That is a wrap and cut.